Deimos. After Deimos disbanded, he joined MicroGamerZ, and he describes his style as very solid macro. And for Miraculous Gaming, we have Atomic. He's a Grandmaster Terran player, and he's one of the up-and-coming players for Miraculous Gaming. Claims he's particularly strong in Terran versus Terran, but that's not going to help him here, as it is a Terran versus Protoss.
So a Terran versus Protoss, I mean, it seems like, Terran versus Protoss is probably one of the least maps. We keep saying this, that we've seen all season. There's just been so many Zergs throughout the entire season, and these teams that we have matched up here just don't have as many Zergs. So we're seeing a bit more of a variety than we've seen so far. And the TVPs we've seen so far today have been really, really interesting, really long, and with very highly varying strategies, whereas the Zerg games we've seen, it just seems like we've seen some fairly consistent play with a couple variations.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. A lot of Roach Hydra today, which has been, it seems like it's been strong in the macro even as well for Zerg, and especially versus Protoss, but even against McTerran, something that you see a lot. So it's kind of a sigh of relief or a breath of fresh air to see not as many Zerg, I guess, in the finals here as the whole kind of season leading up to it has been so many Zerg. Not that I am complaining, because I really like Zerg, but it's also nice to have some variety. It is the spice of life, as they say. Yeah,
that's true. We're going to be going to Overgrowth. This is probably one of the more interesting maps. We've seen some cool play on the season. The map pool in SC2CTL definitely has a high variety. I mean, we kind of try and go with the ladder pool and add in a little bit of spice. Last season, it was that goofy-ass map. What was it called?
Fruitland.
Not Fruitland.
Oh,
the other one.
Guangali Beach. Yeah.
Yes. That map, in the beginning, we're like, oh man, Troy, why'd you put this map in here? But then as it went on, some of the most interesting games we saw were on that map.
Yeah, that was definitely a fun map to watch.
But as we jump in, getting our things set up here, it is going to be in the lower left-hand corner, the pink Protoss, representing MicroGamerZ. It is Stun. And in the upper right-hand corner, the orange Terran, representing Miraculous Gaming. It is the one, the only Atomic.
Overgrowth has become kind of one of those gridiron maps, one of the more reliably, mostly balanced, everyone seems to like it kind of maps, which is cool because it does have gold bases, and that's one of the few maps where people don't seem to super complain about that. Sure, we've seen some Zergs just straight up expand to like even your opponent's gold base, and then famously, spine crawler rush from that. But that's the odd build. It's mostly very straight up and generic. And of course, we're talking Zerg. We don't have that issue here. It's PvT. Atomic, a North American Terran player. I've played quite a few games against him, and it's interesting to hear him, as an up-and-coming guy. That's cool to hear because he did seem to kind of come out of nowhere, and he is pretty damn good at the game. So it's cool that leagues like this kind of give these guys proving grounds to play those competitive matches and make a name for themselves before they, hopefully move on, as you talked about in the past with like Astria and Massa, to bigger and better things.
I mean, in this PvT and this map, I mean, what for you? What would be some of the strengths and weaknesses of this map on one side or the other?
For Protoss players, this is not a terrible map to take a third on, obviously, so you don't have to like already kind of hamstring yourself into thinking you have to do a 2-base all-in. Your base in your main is not super large, so you're not looking at getting dropped to ever-living crap. Of course, it's always going to happen in a PvT matchup, but it's not particularly bad on this map. There's plenty of space to hide tech, so you can be scary that way as well. Your 4th base and 5th base even are very logical as well. It was all the rage on the Terran side a while ago for mech play to split this map and slow push and really draw it out, but that kind of fell by the wayside because this map's actually just fine for generic and safe play as well. So on the Terran side, look to see them try to get engagements mid-map or challenge third while dropping the main. Kind of the standard Terran tactics are allowed to be played here, and that's what's won Terrans a lot of competitions, so that's what they're going to opt for.
So, I mean, speaking of hidden play, we do have a pylon going on the right side. The probe just was barely missed by the SCV of Stun coming on in. Looks like he's probably going to end up putting a Stargate down, so we're going to see some Proxy Oracle play. First time in actually quite a while we've seen this. And I'm not sure if Atomic is exactly where. He did have 2 pylons in his base, so he was kind of covering the base there. Should be having a third one soon, but he's not sticking around to find out.
Well, it's deceiving. He's only on 1 gas until now. He just took his 2nd gas, and this Stargate is going down as if there was 2 gases behind it. So Stun has this timed out very nicely. You'll notice he's obviously skipping the Mothership Core here. He does get a Stalker out, so he has some form of an answer for that Reaper. But otherwise, it's going to be a very, very fast Oracle with a lot of misleading information behind this. A bunker goes down at the natural for Atomic, and inside of his main, there's nothing. There's no missile turret, there's no Marines, nothing. So this Oracle is popping out to a beautiful world where the options are limitless, the Terrans are soft. You know, he's going to be very happy with what he finds here.
Well, especially with pushing up the front with this Stalker and telling a different story than what's actually going on in the back cover of the book.
Right.
You know, just kind of being a little bit threatening, but now this Oracle is going to come out, and he's just not going to be ready at all. This is, he is building an engineering base, so he's going to have the ability to build turrets here before too long. But this Oracle's going to be just
this Oracle's going to have its way with the mineral line. Like, there's nothing here. There's nothing to stop. There's a couple Marines just outside of it, but that's just a couple Marines. It's not 6. And that eBay you talked about, yeah, well, it's not going to get finished just yet. He's going to have to send another SCV over there.
The SCVs building that barracks just kind of rally back. Oh, and he does get stuck right under the Marines, maybe looking back at his base and not quite catching it. But the bullet are here too, and he's going to get a couple extra kills if he micros back. And there's a couple of SCVs that are just almost dead.
Yeah, in doing so, though, he loses the Oracle, which is a big loss. He is making a second one, and like we were saying, he did a lot of damage. So by no means is Stun not, completely ahead. This Oracle heads to the top right-hand side. There are Marines there, but they are damaged. It's 6. Is that still going to be enough? I don't think so. Yes, it is, interestingly enough. So it's just the DPS of the 6, not so much the health. Well, a little bit of a science experiment right there for us.
Well, but still, it's, I mean, he's killed now a total of 7 workers. He's killed countless Marines, and it looks like he's only left to 3 Marines that are in that bunker there and building these turrets. Missed mining time, so I mean, he's definitely...
Another Oracle. Top right, heading up. Oh, there it is. So it's going to be deflected from the main. But to your point, there's I don't know if there's enough Marines now. Oh gosh, no! With the missile turret. There you go.
4 HP left on that Oracle, but he's like oversaturated at his natural expansion now. Has only 5 SCVs at his main. He's kind of rallying back there, but more than damage, he just seems like he's thrown off his game now at this point.
He did throw him off, but it's worth noting. Stun second Nexus only just now about to finish. There's a Reaper in the main base. It will get pushed back here in a minute, but it's causing some mismining as well. Supply-wise, they're closing in on being dead even, and it's just now the robotics facility for the Protoss players. So
that Reaper actually got 5 kills.
I've been here before. I know this well. 3 Oracles have come and died. The first one, absolutely worth its cost. The second and third, not so much. So I actually think the game's pretty even. Stun has this slight advantage in that he did delay the tech of our Terran players, so there's not things like medevacs popping out. Stim is, just now closing in on 70% complete. So it's certainly still a good game for Stun, but 3 Oracles in, this Atomic's done a great job staying alive. Let's put it that way.
Well, like you said, the worker count is fairly even looking at the resources lost. I mean, Stun is actually 200 behind Atomic, so Atomic has lost not quite as much with an even economy, of course, not counting mules. So he's actually ahead in economy. He wasn't mining gas out of his main base there for a little bit just because he had to kind of extract everything to his natural expansion. But now it looks like everything's just kind of stabilized a bit.
They have stabilized a bit. I still think I would, even despite what you just said, and the supply being in favor of Atomic, I would give a slight advantage to Stun in the sense that Atomic is just now finishing his factory and going to Starport, whereas we can see... I got a little bit ahead of myself. The Colossus should be started here any second. Nope. Okay, yep, there's the Colossus. So, a Colossus coming out right now. We kind of go back to that Noblesse... what was his name? Fox? Yeah, Noblesse Fox situation where it's like... if Atomic doesn't see this really fast Colossus build coming out, he could just die. He makes 4 medevacs, a bunch of Marines, and then dies, right? But if he scans this and sees it coming, it's a different situation. So I like that Stun has put this game in a position where Atomic could just lose depending on whether or not he scouts.
And it's kind of a similar thing here now, too, where Blink is coming out as well, so he's going to have Blink Stalkers along with the Colossus, and Atomic is in no position to really push out because he didn't find the Stargate yet, and he didn't kill it, whereas a lot of times, looks like he does know where it is, but he hasn't taken care of it. A lot of times, they'll go out and actually take out at least the pylon, but, I mean, there could be more oracles made behind this. He doesn't know exactly what's coming, so now it's the first time he's kind of stepping out into unfamiliar territory, and now he's actually going to go take care of that. But I mean, that takes a lot of time. He's got a lot of Marines here. +1/+1 is about to finish, so that's time that he could be pushing towards stun.
That's actually combat shield. It's just going to be +1 attack for the Terran player, but only now are the double forges for stun finishing. So, you know, I talked about the potential for a timing attack. Nope, I think these are more defensive Colossus. Which is a bit of a shame because there's actually no scout coming in from Atomic outside of these units moving out. He feels that he's so far behind that he has to basically conserve all of his energy use and use it on mules and rely on his army to go find out the situation. He sees there's no third. That's good news for him, or bad news, right? It's equal parts good and bad. He's like, am I getting all in? Because if I am, I'm in trouble, but if I'm not, then we're okay.
Yeah. He is kind of moving out and scouting around quite a bit. I mean, he's covering a lot of space right now. If we look at his vision, he's got a lot of the map in his view, and looked like he wanted to just move in and take out that third, but found there wasn't one, so he's just kind of pulling back. But he's really split up right now. He's got kind of a small contingency to the right, just kind of trying maybe to slow down or just keep an eye on the third, but now there's Marines coming in and stun, not really... Wow, okay, I thought he was going to go in there, but he's going to chase down the cell instead.
And he's going to move his Colossus to the right side to try to defend this third Nexus, but with those Marauders, there's probably enough DPS, yep, exactly, to get it canceled and then back away. You know, we exist and live in a Pult Terran-style era where armies are very rarely completely together, and when they are, it's for the big fight. And I like what I'm seeing from Atomic. He gets that third cancel, he's moving to the natural, forces a Photon Overcharge here. He's going to go for the Nexus. He, of course, will not get that. And that's perhaps where we still talk about him as a little bit of a young player. If he had more Marauders, maybe, but he does get, again, the cancellation on the right side, so nicely done. And behind this, Atomic is taking his third. He's getting armor, and there's the armory plus the engineering base. So business as usual for him at home. He's managing this very well.
And he's keeping a good eye on what Atomic's doing and kind of keeping him back. Atomic was moving out there with some Stalkers a little bit. It kind of stemmed up with some barely alive Marines and ended up pushing him back a little bit. But, I mean, I'm still trying to get a read on Stun's actual game plan here. I thought he's going to get ready to move out a couple times. +1/+1 just finished up. And he is split up. Like he said, he has some Stalkers on the left to protect against those drops. Colossus sentries on the right. But now, I mean, it's like Atomic kind of freaked him out by pushing in on a couple sides, and now Stun is playing real defensively and covering all the angles, whereas Atomic's just pulled back and is just kind of macroing up again now.
Yeah, they're fairly equal in supply, which is generally speaking very good for Protoss. But to your point, this third's getting saturated from Atomic. We don't see a Templar Archives or anything like that, so we don't have that very feared Colossus Storm combo coming out anytime too terribly soon, at least. Third is about to finish for the Protoss player. 2-2 is coming up for stun, but our Terran player is not too far behind. There's the 2 range attack for him. Well, range attack's a silly thing to say. There's the 2 attack upgrade for him. 1 armor is about to finish. So he's, in the ballpark in terms of upgrades as well.
He's just kind of taking this opportunity to scout around and make sure there's no pylons sitting around the back, which he did a good job, but he just kind of barely came down and just stayed right out of the range of this one on the left side. It is a ways away, but still within a decent poking range of the third base if Atomic was to move out with a big army push. But, I mean, he does have the factory here, too, so he can see one of the Colossus there.
Yeah. Yeah, the Protoss player is the one that generally can't afford to move around the map, and with that being said, Atomic's done a great job scanning around the map looking for, as you said, vision or any kind of rogue pylon. He found one by his third, but Stun's still done a great job. There's one on the left side, there's one on the right side, and that's a must for Protoss. Now even being active with his Blink Stalkers, knowing that I guess drops are not a part of Atomic's game plan, at least at this stage. So very nice play so far from both players.
He's definitely terrified of the Colossus. He's making 4 Vikings at a time out of 2 starports, it looks like. And but there is an observer right over the main base of Atomic, so every time these Vikings pop out, he sees every single one of them, so he knows exactly what's coming out.
Oh yeah, and that's kind of cool. A lot of times that observer would actually be at more like the natural or outside the natural, something like that, to see the army movement, but instead he's keying in on the production, and seeing that, It's a little bit scary because he's produced 6 Colossus anyways. Like, he scouted out one thing, but then just kind of ignored it anyways. I'm not sure I like that from him, actually, because there is actually a crap ton of Vikings here, and this is such a good position for him. Oh, even hallucinating, but there's the scan, sees that there is hallucinations.
Yeah, I mean,
and I feel really worried for Stun now, I'll tell you.
But I mean, there really is a great attack path into the third base here.
Yeah, good Zealot Harass here from the Pros player. Does dislodge that third, and he can even challenge the natural if he wants. Atomic, meanwhile, is kind of tunnel vision. He says, nope, we're going to do this thing. And he's all balled up here. He's got to be careful, though, because there are so many Colossus that he could just take massive damage. And Stun says, you're pulling your SCVs? Let's do this. Here come the Colossus. A lot of lasers flying forward. SCVs melting away almost immediately. Stalkers not getting a good concave on the Vikings, but yeah, it's not going to be enough. Our Terran player has a fantastic concave here. Not enough support units. They push forward. The Colossus have all died. And here comes Atomic. He, sure, lost a lot of SCVs. He's not mining off his third, but he's 50 supply ahead.
Yeah, well, it seems like those
supply is massive.
Those Colossus in the back were focusing pretty much only on the SCVs on the right side of that push. So, I mean, he wasn't really doing any DPS to the army.
And it's tough. It's a tough situation for the Protoss. And that I feel like you almost have to have Storm. I mean, if it was a single reactor starport from our Terran player, then 6 Colossus are godlike. But if it's double reactor and the guy shows up with damn near 16 Vikings, I don't care how many Colossus you have, they're going to die.
And there was still the Zealots pushing into the natural expansion of Atomic there, but the Vikings landed and able to take it out, and Atomic's just pushing into the natural here. He's going to end up taking out the Nexus and just end up waltzing himself right up on into the base. This is where we've seen in a couple games so far that dances are performed.
Yeah, it looks like we are going to have some parity here. If I'm not mistaken, this would be the first point for MIRG, correct?
Yep, indeed.
And we will have that point, by the way. There's no drama here.
No.
This is a dead Protoss. He tried some stuff at the third, but if you actually looked over at the third, Atomic's not even freaking mining from it. He was essentially on one base Terran economy, but that's only because he used the guys that were mining off that second base, and not necessarily the third, to give him that buffer. As you pointed out, very wisely so, the Colossus mostly shot down the SCVs, but the SCVs had already forfeit their lives. They were there to be sacrificial lambs. If they die and Marines and Marauders live, then that's a Terran that's happy.
I mean, that's really where he needed the Templar, needed the Storm to just pop down the Storm on the SCVs and let the Colossus go about their business with the army. I mean, we've seen a couple PVTs so far where it's kind of been like that, where they've almost, like in this, like you said, he rushed for the Colossus sort of. He got him out and he just was very defensive with him, didn't really push out with him.
Yeah.
But then didn't end up going for phase 2 with the High Templar and Storm. At what point would it have been a good idea to do that, or why was that decision not made, in your opinion?
I can answer, but the second part of that question is speculation. I don't know. I mean, we've seen this from a few players